Now available in paperback, John Haynes at Death's Door. The man who rules the world takes on the Greek god of death in this action-packed John Haynes series adventure. Pick up your copy of John Haynes at Death's Door at Amazon.com and other online booksellers everywhere. One of my viewers wanted to know whether or not the United States of America is the new Babylon. And when I take a critical examination of the United States of America, it mirrors the Babylonian Empire, and it also mirrors the Roman Empire as well. And this is one of the reasons why I put fingers to the keyboard to write a story I call The Saga of Masticacius. Now, in my story, The Saga of Masticacius, I talk about an African nation called Casia, which basically was considered to be a land of milk and honey because it was the world's dominant superpower before recorded history. And as those people were living in that land of milk and honey and prospering very well, the leader, Masticacius, basically took life so for granted that he sought to challenge the gods. And this is what led to the destruction of Casia, and it led to the real world destruction of the Babylonian Empire, and it also led to the destruction of the Roman Empire. Now, the United States of America, just like Babylon, basically is a nation where people are living in a world of milk and honey, and they're prospering and living very well to the point where they're basically starting to take their lives for granted. And because they take their lives for granted, they don't go out here and express gratitude to the Most High God, who was considered to be the standard back when men were building the nation. That there was a time when people actually reverenced and respected the Most High God, but over time, the American people have walked away from the Most High God, and they've gone out here and worship false gods. And this is very similar to what happened in the Babylonian Empire, where people were out here, they were out here worshiping these false gods. And as they were out here worshiping these false gods, they were out here taking their lives for granted to the point where they were living a life of decadence, and they had no regard for their fellow man. And this is one of the things that led to that nation declining. Now, your Babylonians back in recorded times, they were a world superpower, and as the world superpower, they were basically dominating the entire Mesopotamian region, and they had even conquered the Israelites back for 70 years until they wound up fighting back. But still, your Babylon was such a huge empire that was filled with lots of people living in decadence, and it was that decadence that basically led to the decline of the Babylonian Empire, because as generations passed, the kings of the Babylonian Empire began to take their life and existence for granted, and as a result, instead of them going out here and having competent leaders put in place, they went out here and had a series of incompetent leaders running the kingdom, and they ran the kingdom into the ground because they were caught up in vanity projects to go out here and sate their own egos instead of doing things like trying to secure their borders. And this is what led to the nation falling into a state of decline, to the point where the Persians wound up conquering your Babylon in its last days. Now, when I take a further critical examination of the United States of America, it definitely is the new Babylon. And it's another empire that was basically the world's superpower. It was a nation that was a land of milk and honey. It's a nation where people wound up prospering and living very well. And as they were out here living very well, they bought into a false religion and a false god known as white supremacy. Now, your white supremacy is the same type of false god that your Babylonians went out here and worshipped. And as your Americans went out here and worshiped the religion of white supremacy, this is really what led to the nation going into this state of decline, because as we have your white supremacy being the religion of the United States, this whole religion of white supremacy and the efforts to preserve this institution of white supremacy, this is what's turned America into a Babylon, where your white supremacists are out here worshiping themselves, and instead of looking to the Most High God for guidance and looking to the Most High God for leadership, they are looking to themselves, and they have gone out here and deified themselves the same way the Babylonians were out here worshiping these idols. But the idolatry of white supremacy has your Americans out here worshiping the concept of whiteness. And as they go out here and worship the concept of whiteness, this is what led to Americans buying into the whole concept of consumerism, which is another part of the religion of white supremacy. And as they're out here buying into the concept of consumerism, they're out here buying whatever idols the institution of white supremacy has them going out here and purchasing. And as they're out here consuming and being a part of all of this decadence, they have no moral position, they have no moral standard, and as a result, your America has turned just like your Babylon and your Roman Empire into a society where people just participate in all sorts of decadence without any sort of gratitude or appreciation of the Most High. And since they have no appreciation of the Most High God and do not want to go out here and serve the Most High, what we have are people again serving themselves, looking to sate their ego. And in the case of your black people and other minorities, many of them are worshiping at the altar of white supremacy. And as they're worshiping at the altar of white supremacy and worshiping this false god, they're out here looking to participate in the same decadence as many of the white and non-black people are participating in, living a debaucherous life where they're out here participating in any vice they feel comfortable with, like all of this sexual promiscuity, and now further escalation into sexual deviancy. And we're also seeing people going out here and participating in all sorts of perversion, and we're told all of this is socially acceptable. And as people are worshiping their false gods and participating in their decadent and devious lifestyles, this is where America really starts to parallel these empires like the Babylonian Empire and the Roman Empire, and all of those empires, as people went out here worshiping false gods and participating in their sexually deviant, sexually promiscuous, and decadent behavior, those civilizations went into decline, because as people were participating in things for their pleasure and their leisure, what happened was there was nobody looking to go out here and take care of the nation, go out here and serve the nation, because most people were out here serving themselves. And if we look at the modern day United States of America, most Americans are out here looking to serve themselves, They have no interest in serving the Most High God. They have no interest in doing the work of the Most High God. They have no interest in going out here and giving reverence to the Most High God. No, what most Americans who are in this modern day Babylon, which people call the world system, they're out here looking to go out here and be out here doing whatever they want without any sort of accountability to the Most High. And that's why the United States is the new Babylon, because it's out here promoting the same dysfunctional lifestyle and the same dysfunctional ideas that led to the complete decline of the Babylonian Empire. And if we really take a look at America, like the Babylonians and the Romans, they are right now in the middle of a start of a decline, just like the Babylonians and the Romans were in. Now, when I look at America, America's decline really started in the 1960s, and it started in the 1960s because your white supremacists did not want to go out here and share economic and political power with black people. And because they didn't want to share economic and political power with black people, that, I believe, is what started the decline of America, because instead of giving foundational black Americans their tangibles through programs like affirmative action and going out here and helping foundational black Americans build and maintain their black-owned businesses, what your white supremacists did was go out here and divide the black community with integration. And then what they did was further divide the black family with the feminist movement. Unfortunately, their supporting the feminist movement is what really started the complete decline of America, because when they supported the feminists, they compromised the moral position of the United States of America, and them going out here and supporting these feminists who have a low moral position. This is what led to the direction of America going into a major decline, because like the old African proverb says, a race can rise no higher than the moral position of its women, and as the woman goes, so goes the race. Unfortunately, when your state went out here and supported the white feminist, they didn't understand that she has a low moral position, and any support of her leads to the decline of the country. So in their efforts to break the black family by going out here and dividing the black man from the black woman, ironically, they started the entire decline of the country, because when you indoctrinated all of America's women into feminism, this is what led to the creation of the beta male who does not know how to build or how to lead. And it also leads to the creation of the feminist indoctrinated woman. And this feminist indoctrinated woman, she is placed in the state as the de facto leader, but she herself does not know how to lead. Moreover, she does not know how to build, and all she knows how to do is participate in decadence, like the women in the Roman and Babylonian civilizations. And she is a very sexually promiscuous woman, and that really messed up the country and put the country into a crisis, because there was no moral position at this point, and this is what was the undoing of the Babylonians. It was the undoing of the Romans, and it is what is the current undoing of America. But one of the things we can look at as related to America is that racism is the major part of what led to this whole decline, because again, they did not want to share power with foundational black Americans. And again, because they didn't want to share power with foundational black Americans, they gave power to the white woman who wants to live a life of decadence and consumerism, and her moral position is completely compromised. And again, when you have a completely compromised woman who has no moral position, this leads to the entire nation going into a major state of decline because, again, you are creating women who are only out to get their pleasure and they cannot build, and you're breeding beta males who are not effective leaders and do not understand anything about critical thinking or focusing on the long term. And when we look at America, the decline of America, like Babylon, fell apart in the 1960s. That's when we started to see the decline because we started to see them going out here and electing mediocre and incompetent leaders who are more focused on race and controlling black people and destroying black people. Because if you really look at it, the decline of America really started with your Lyndon Johnson and his Great Society, which led to the Great Decline of America. And this was reinforced by your Richard Nixon, who went out here and waged war on black people through his war on drugs, and further reinforced by your Ronald Reagan and his Reaganomics, and your Gerald Ford and your Jimmy Carter, who basically were ineffective, your Bill Clinton and the crime bill, and then your George W. Bush. I mean, just like Babylon with Nebuchadnezzar, we see a series of incompetent leaders, and these incompetent leaders are just coming one after the other because we had a period of prosperity after World War II, sadly, and many of those people who grew up in that time, like the baby boomers, they took their lives for granted. They didn't appreciate what their parents provided for them. They didn't appreciate all of the amenities that were given to them, and they didn't go out here and appreciate to maintain what their fathers and grandfathers established. And because of that, they don't know how to lead, especially those males who grew up under feminism, like a Barack Obama and a Bill Clinton. And your George W. Bush. A lot of these guys, they do not know how to lead. They don't know how to build. And again, focused on trivial vanity matters and focused on trivial issues and focused on things that really do not build or maintain a nation. And this is what has led to the decline of America, just like Babylon wound up declining. And that's where we are right now, because the United States is just like Babylon, a place where people are living in extreme decadence. People are living focused on pleasure, and the men are not focused on leadership. The men are not focused on family. The men are not focused on building anything. No, the men have turned into whoremongers, and these whoremongers are looking for harlots, and that's why we look at your Babylon, which is considered to be the mother of harlots in the Bible, I believe. And this is what we have here with the United States, which is the current leader of the world system, just like Rome was the leader of the world system, just like Babylon was the leader of the world system. And all of these empires, their whole reason for falling apart is because they were so caught up in the pleasure, the lust of the eye, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. And as they were caught up in their lust for flesh and lust for pleasure, this is what led to the nation winding up falling apart, because they weren't focused on important priorities. Because if we look at America right now, what are the priorities of the Biden presidency? The priorities are things like climate change and vanity projects, not focused on building and maintaining infrastructure. Everything is more about people's egos and their own personal vanity, and it is not about going out here and doing something like maintaining the moral standards, which have fallen further and further into decline. And as these moral standards have fallen into decline, We don't have a family structure anymore here in America because we have feminists and not women, and we have beta males who are looking to follow women instead of looking to set a direction for the country and setting a lead for the country. And this is one of the reasons why I call the United States the pathetic states of America, because the pathetic state of affairs of the men in the country is made the nation weak, and like the Babylonians and the Romans under the inept leadership of weak emperors in Rome and the weak emperors in Babylon, or the kings in Babylon, they are more focused on their own personal pleasures and sating their own egos than going out here and serving the people. The last, I say 10 or 15 presidents have been more focused on their own ego rather than going out here and serving the needs of the people. It's all about serving themselves and going out here and meeting their own personal needs. It's not about going out here and doing what the people need them to do. So it's all about what they want. Like if we look at George W. Bush's Iraq war, it wasn't about weapons of mass destruction. As I see it, really was about George W. Bush going after his father's enemies. And when we look at Barack Obama's Hope and Change, it didn't really change anything for many Americans. And then we went into the Trump vanity presidency, which did a little something here and there for people. And then we have your Joker Joe, who basically is a lost, directionless person. And again, just showing us the decadence of America, where people take their lives for granted. People take their freedom for granted. People take their civilization for granted because we have people focused on identity and genders and all of this other stuff instead of building up infrastructure in the country, looking to go out here and maintain a strong military and going out here and building up infrastructure that allows all of our homeless veterans to be cared for, because a civilization is supposed to take care of its soldiers, the ones who served it, it's supposed to take care of its people. But instead of taking care of people, we have people caught up in what they want. And again, when I look at the modern America, it is just like the Babylonians, caught up in the false religion of white supremacy, caught up in the vanity of their personal lust, caught up in sexual deviancy and debauchery. And it's a nation that's in decline. And sadly, most of the Americans in America are completely clueless to the dysfunctional state of their union, because if they looked at a history book, they would see that America is in the same place that Rome and Babylon were before they were invaded by the Persians and the Visigoths and Ostrogoths. Because what nations who have weak borders and no military to protect their boundaries, and a nation of people caught up in foolishness like multiple genders and all sorts of identity and all sorts of foolishness, that's a nation that isn't strong. Moreover, when you've got a nation filled with a lot of softened males, which we've had over the last 50 years as feminists have tried, and the state have tried to socially engineer their soft male, you don't have men who are military ready and men ready to go out here and defend the country and protect the country from its threats, nor do you have men who are out here looking to go out here and build families. And that's the kind of decadence we have here in America, where we have women giving their bodies away to men on dating apps, and just like the harlots were in Rome and Babylon. And we have nobody interested in building and establishing families. No, we don't have people focused on matters that are of priority. We have people focused on pleasure, but that pleasure usually turns to pain, because a nation that has no moral position, no direction, and no family structure, and no real leadership, that's a nation that is on the brink of being invaded. And that's sadly where America is right now, just like Babylon. And when we look at Babylon, again, it was a prosperous empire, but the sad part was was people took their lives for granted, and that's what led to the great fall of a once great empire. Now, this was a video requested by one of my viewers, and if you want to request a video, you can send a donation to the Cash App or the PayPal, and if I know something about that subject, I will make that video for you. And if you want to pick up some of my positive black fiction on the SJS Direct imprint, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Smith-Dorella trilogy, or the ebook I talked about, the Saga of Masticacious, you can find those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on Smashwords, the iBook Store, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and e-readers. E-Steam Horror of the Hyena Woman. Hell's aspiring angel takes on a wicked werewolf in this action-packed all-new E-Steam series adventure. Get E-Steam Horror of the Hyena Woman in paperback and e-readers today.